Yo, what's up guys? d-cellgaming here, and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you about Soulworker Online, a game that I have recently been playing. In this video, I'm going to give you my impressions on it, some pros and cons, and whether something like this is worth your time. So for those of you that don't know, Soulworker Online is a free-to-play MMO, beat-em-up, hack-em-slash type game, where you are in a hub-based area and then you go out and you perform different maps and different dungeons to do. Soulworker was originally released in 2016 by Lion Game Studios, and it was brought over to the West by Gameforge in 2018. Now since then, Gameforge has shut down their servers and Lion Game Studios picked the game back up and released a global version of their own. Now this is probably for the best, as the Gameforge version was not that good in my opinion, and the Lion Game Studios seem to be very active. There's always something to do within the game, an event to grind, and overall this version of the game seems much more up to date than the Gameforge version. Soulworker is a free-to-play MMO. You can pick it up on Steam. However, do be careful because you can get the wrong version on Steam, as the Gameforge version did shut down. So if you download it, you're kind of waste your time. You'll have to download the new one. So when you go to this store page, just make sure both the developer and publisher says Lion Games on it, because if it says Gameforge on there, that is the wrong version of Soulworker and you will be wasting your time. Let's go ahead and jump in game and start with the character customization. So when you go to start a new character in the game, you will be greeted with this menu, and you will immediately notice that each character is gender locked. Now these characters all have their own personalities, they have their own lore behind them. So in this situation, I am not as immediately irked by having the gender locks. Most of the time I do prefer to be able to be male or female. Just it's more customization is always better. However, this game does it pretty well, as you do have different lore and personalities for each character. But that does mean if you want to be a katana wielding character, you're going to be stuck with this character as opposed to a male character. You have Haru, who is the classic two-handed sword user. You have Erwin Arclight, who is going to be like a dual gunner. Then you have Lily, who uses a scythe. You have Stella Unibel, who is going to be using a guitar. She is more of a support. Jin Saipatsu, he's going to be using his fists to beat up the enemies. Iris Yuma, a lot of people don't really understand her weapon, and to be honest with you, I don't either. It's actually a giant hammer. Now imagine just a giant hammer without the stick portion of it, and she's just basically holding on to that, except it's like a machine weapon. It's pretty ridiculous, and it's actually kind of awesome. You have Shi, who wields the katana, F-Nail, who is going to be a spear user, and then last you have Lee, Nabi, who is going to be using a rifle. When you go to create your character, you're going to notice immediately the customizations options are not that many. You only have a few eye colors and hairstyles to choose from, skin tones. Now you can choose some preview items to see what things look like here. You can choose the voices here. There's not very many customizations options in the game. However, once you get in game and you start unlocking the in-character customizations, and there's also some cash shop items as well, you can further customize your character. Now you will notice that the biggest way that this game is going to create a source of income for itself is by selling you cosmetic items. When you create your character, you will be greeted with some cutscenes and some lore. You will be introduced to a tutorial, which you can skip. I think that's a nice touch, because once you start creating alts and things like that, you can skip through it. Now, one thing to note about this game is you do not have any English voiceovers, and I'll kind of go over that a little bit more later, but be prepared because there's a lot of dialogue that you're going to have to read, because even the voice acted bits are not in English. There is a lot to go over. This game has a lot to offer, and I will try to keep it as concise as possible. Now, one of the biggest new things that I've noticed between this version and the Gameforge version is the soul sequence. So as you're going through and you're unlocking your different stages, you have various items that you can try to hunt for, and if you get all of the items in that sequence, you will get a reward for doing so. The biggest difference in this version is that once you receive your reward, it is actually the completed item. In the Gameforge version, you actually only got a blueprint, which you then had to grind even more materials for before you could even unlock it. And we're talking like for very basic cosmetic items like a hat and things like that, you would have to even grind like it was kind of ridiculous in my opinion. But in the global version of the Lion Game Studios, you can actually just get the item from doing the soul sequence. So for example, I got all 4 in this, and I can go ahead and accept the military beret here. So if we go into the items and character menu here, you will see that I have this beret that I can now put on my head if I so choose. Like so. Now I have a little hat on my character's head. Another thing to note in this game is that you don't really have to worry about side quests. The main quests offer way more bonuses and way more experiences than you do for getting side quests. They're really not worth picking up because they kind of clutter your quest log, and eventually you're gonna out level them, and it's just honestly the rewards you get for the side quests just aren't worth it, and that's kind of a shame. The game does have your standard WASD movement and an action combat UI that you've kind of come to expect from most games like this. It also has controller support if you want to go that route. One thing I enjoy about the game is I really do like its graphics. I think the graphics are great. They're pretty amazing. And the character models, most of the costumes in the cash shop obviously look pretty good. And honestly, I think the cosmetic items that you can unlock in game are actually not bad at all. The music's pretty good. The gameplay in this game is pretty phenomenal. The combat is very responsive. It feels satisfying when you hit enemies, and the sound effects also feel very satisfying. It has a nice combo system, and you can update your skills in a variety of different ways, and some even have branching paths that you have to choose between one or the other. The combo system is pretty intuitive, and you can customize it even further. There's also daily quests to do, and almost always some kind of event to be grinding at the moment. When you go to your Gruten shop over here, you can see from the daily event items that you get, you can craft different sort of rewards, which is fantastic. This gives you always something to do, whether you're leveling a character or you're at end game. It kind of gives you something to work towards. Now, as stated before, there are no English voiceovers, so you will notice there is a absolute ton of dialogue to go through. Now, you can skip this with spacebar or skip it entirely with the R button, which is very, very nice if you're leveling up an alt. However, if you're trying to go through the story and read it, you're probably going to get annoyed. I know I do. I read most things, and even I kind of get annoyed with just how much dialogue it is. And then when you jump in stage and you have bickering back and forth between voice acted characters, you have to actually take yourself away from the game because you can't fight and read at the same time. So it would be nice to have some kind of English dub at least for those. But it's not game breaking, and the story itself is actually pretty decent. It's pretty dark in my opinion. It's a little darker than I thought it was going to be when I initially started playing through it. But yeah, overall, I mean, it's not going to be winning any awards or anything like that, but it's definitely a solid story that will kind of keep you engaged and keep you wanting to level a little further just so you can see what's next. Another nice thing that this game does is it provides you with a reward every 5 levels. So you're going to get a new weapon and some new armor. It will provide you at the very beginning of the game with some accessories that will provide experience buffs. So you're probably going to want to wear those all the way up until your max level just so you can get some extra XP. But every 5 levels, you will unlock some more armor and you will unlock some more weapons. So you don't have to worry about wasting your precious FP points on grinding out gear for yourself. Now, speaking of FP is the stamina system in this game. You get about 200 every day. However, if you don't spend all of your FP in one day, you do get some of that into the next day. So like if you have 100 left over and it resets to 200, you now have 300. There is a cap to this, but this is a very nice system as it allows you to continually play the game. And the game is pretty generous in its rewards on giving you FP restoring items as well. So this is nice as it does cap on how much you can grind the game. but it also is pretty generous compared to most games that have a stamina system. There is also a housing system in the game for those of you that want to grind out and get some materials for your house. It's more of an in-game type of thing, as you're leveling, you're probably not going to have the money or resources to really deck out your house. As you can see, mine is pretty bare bones, but it's pretty great because you can place items and it just gives you a place of your own to decorate and something to always work towards. You can also interact with your items, like my couch here. I can choose to sit down on it if I wish, which is a nice little level of immersion. Oh. The house also comes with a garden, so you can plant items and create things that way, but while you're leveling, you're most likely not going to be paying much attention to your house. Again, this is much more of an in-game thing, and it does have a sort of prestige system. So for people who want to go that route, there's sort of like leaderboards in this game for just dungeon clears and for the housing system as well. So all of that is pretty nice once you hit the in-game. You also get daily login rewards from your mail, so be sure to always check every 30 minutes or so for the new login rewards you get, because you do get different rewards for playing time up to an hour and a half, and every day you also get a new login reward every 2 weeks, and it just cycles out from there. Also, you do get like a 3-day consecutive login bonus, so it's important to log in every day and kind of get your rewards. This is a nice incentive to keep players coming back to the game. The game also has a card system, the Akashic Records, which will provide passive and active skills bonuses for your character. This is going to be a lot of your grinding for trying to get brooches and Akashic record cards. Now, brooches go on your cosmetic items. Each cosmetic has a brooch equipable slot. Some you will have to unlock. If you buy them from the cash shop, they come completely unlocked already. Once you've unlocked the brooch slot for the item, then you can actually wear one of the brooches, and they look like something like this. Your move speed in the district plus 3%. So they give more stats and more bonuses to your character. All right, so let's go over some pros and cons of the game. The gameplay itself, the combat and everything involving that is fantastic. It feels satisfying, it's great, it's fluid, the music is good, the art, the animation, everything about it feels very satisfying. There are plenty of things to do in Soulworker Online, from dailies to events you're grinding to the in-game grind, which I admittedly am not there yet. The developers themselves actually seem very active. Again, there's always something going on, a community buff, an event that you gotta grind, some things that you can craft. There's always something going on. So this feels very alive and active. Even the environments around you, you'll see birds flying away from you, or dogs and cats coming up to you when you're in the different districts, and every zone seems pretty different. So there's a lot to go in. There's a lot going on here, and the developers being active is always nice. Now, for some cons with the game, you can't hide the chat box. It's kind of ridiculous. Even in cutscenes, you can see the megaphone. So if somebody says something absolutely dumb, it can kind of break your immersion a little bit. And there's having this persistent chat box, even within the dungeons, is kind of silly. You should be able to at least have some kind of way that it fades away after, like, 5-6 seconds of inactivity. Just let it fade away so it's not cluttering the UI. I find that pretty bothersome and unnecessary. There are no English voiceovers in the game. This is kind of a negative, because when you're trying to go through the game the first time, you really want to try to pay attention to the story, especially if you enjoy the story like myself. So when you go into a dungeon for the first time and you've got several characters talking while you have enemies attacking you, you don't have time to read or understand what's going on because it's all in Japanese. So unless you understand Japanese, you're kind of going to be left in the dark about what they're saying, unless you just stop the gameplay for a moment and read it. And yes, it definitely does have some pay to win elements. Now, most of this are kind of pay for convenience, as you can unlock most of this stuff as you're just playing the game normally. There's nothing really in the game that you can't get without paying it. So you don't actually have to pay, but it will definitely speed your progress up, and it will definitely give you a little bit of an edge on the leaderboards. So if you're just playing the game with some friends and you're grouping up that way, it's great. It's a fantastic game. But if you're trying to push leaderboards, you will start to see some of those pay to win elements. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Now, do I think this game is worth your time? I think it's absolutely worth anybody's time. It's definitely a fantastic game. It has great hooks, it has great gameplay, and it has great design and just artwork. Everything is very, very well done, and it's free. You can pick it up on Steam and you can try it out for free. So it's definitely worth trying out to see if it's for you. As for me, I will probably continue playing it in my off time. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about Soul Worker, if you tried it, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, what you think about the game, what you think about this video. Let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next one.